This is another guy that I think is doing exactly what he set out to do. I bet if you go back to his elementary school yearbook, if they had one, not only was the editor and publisher, but he probably made the statement, you know what I'd like to do? I'd like to be the number one featured guy on the Miami Dolphins beat after a sensational career with a very diverse background in various sports coverage aspects, but with the, Sun Sentinel and many other newspapers. The great Chris Perkins joins us here on the show. Chris, how are you, my friend?
Defo, at my age, I think my yearbook was done with a piece of granite and a chisel, right? That's how far back my yearbook goes.
Time! Wake up with Defo, joined by Lubie. Welcome to the Defo Show.
And a very pleasant good morning, everybody. Good to be with you here as we welcome in 2023. That's going to take a while. When will be the first time you make a mistake on a check and write the wrong date? And the guy gets to the bank. I usually write a couple like this. I'll be sending you one, Louie, no doubt, Segreto, and anybody else that we pay through the system here. And it'll say 2022 on it. And then when they take it to the bank, the teller, if they're sharp, we'll look at whoever's trying to cash this check. In this case, let's use Lubie for an example and say, sorry, not only is it past 90 days, but the statute of limitations has expired. And we don't even know if the forest is still alive. So, try cashing this another time or get the guy to write a new date on it. But anyway, we made it into 2023. It was sort of sedate for me, although I did spend a good portion of the last day of 2022 at a local casino. And fortunately, and I don't know if this is a good sign, I guess it is, a winning day came about. And until later when I had to go back, and then the Mustang was using an enormous amount of free play. I think that quickly evaporated before we had dinner. And she was hitting me up for cash as I was cashing out from a slot machine, which I managed to get the money that I lost that evening back, which I was only going to invest about $50 in the whole night because I hate playing machines. I really do. Unless I just have so much money on me that it really doesn't matter. And you throw a stick in there and then you feel like an asshole because you left the casino and you could have been up another $100, which is not the easiest thing to grind out if you're playing the horses. But had a good time. Had a freebie complimentary dinner at the restaurant in this particular casino. It's now known as a Harrah's Casino. So they've been very, very... they couldn't be any more generous to the Mustang and me with their rewards program, including an invitation. I probably shouldn't mention this to Mayo because he'll make a face, but an invitation to what would have been, according to them, a $350 New Year's Eve dinner, $175 a copy for two people. Now, I would have to say, while the food was fine and at the price of being 0.0, it was absolutely delightful. At $175 a copy, I would have been upset with what I had received there. What do you think, Lubie? Can you possibly complain? You can't complain if it's a freebie. But I was thinking, I don't know how many people actually paid for this dinner, but if I had thrown $175, $350 for two on this one, I would have thought I got hosed a little bit. And now, how was your New Year's Eve? Was it good? And let me say, everything turned out fine. Couldn't have had a better time. But no way I would have invested that kind of dough in a dinner on New Year's Eve and thought, wow, I got my money's worth on this one. It's kind of like that time, and I can't for the life of me remember the name of this place. It was a hip place on South Beach. I'm not sure if it's still there anymore. This had to be it might be all the way back like 25 years ago. And with the great Jim Dunn and a party of about 12, we all went to this place, and it was $500 a copy for New Year's Eve. That included like one stone crab claw. It was supposed to be unlimited, but by the time you found a guy to get another one, that was it, man. You could have harvested this stuff yourself. I did make it past 12, although I didn't stay the entire time. Mustang went the distance. She was bombed. I wasn't really drinking that night. And, I drove home about 10 o'clock from the casino, and I watched a couple of the shows there. Ryan Seacrest, he is Mr. Television. Let's face it, he's a young Dick Clark. And, I thought that was okay. There was some sporting activity going on at the same time, right? A couple of these ball games were still in action. And I thought I flipped over to CNN, which I do watch quite frequently, although less and less since the Trumpster isn't as much in focus. I just love the way that they rip Donald Trump every 3 seconds. And I would say I'm a big Anderson Cooper fan, but he and this guy Andy Cohen were butchering New Year's Eve, I thought. Just absolutely a butcher job, which we'll get to because there was another media butcher job last night. How was your New Year's Eve before we get going with our stuff? Because, wow, I mean, you could not have asked for, A, more scintillating action, and B, more dramatic stuff to be happening over this past couple of days.
My New Year's Eve was good. I mean, we had some friends over to the new house. We kept it low key. Shirley was off all week.
Well, when are you having a housewarming party, by the way, Libby? Am I ever going to see this joint or no?
You can. It's not done yet. Like, we're living here and it's passable, so we had some people over, but I still want to get the studio done. I have to get the flooring done. My buddy's been in and out of town and been sick, and I'm not really good with that stuff. So hopefully sometime of that.
Florida contractors, by the way, are extremely reliable, always on time, always on budget.
Yeah, right.
I don't know that any Florida contractor has ever even made the slightest implication of making an excuse for not delivering exactly what they promised you when they took your deposit. A lot of guys just take a deposit and go to Costa Rica. That's it. All right. But you had a good time, huh? Did you embrace Shirley at New Year's and promise her that this was going to be the best year of her life?
It's funny. We had.
You are Mr. Romance still, whereas I just, told the Mustang, hey, Stang, take an Uber home. I'm out of here. Well, her friend met her. Her friend met her there. I didn't leave her there alone. In fact, the guy at the valet had seen us come out before, and he's actually brought us our car many times. It's this same kid, and he actually asked me why I was leaving without my wife. It wasn't a Dana White thing, I can assure you, where we were slapping each other around, which is not a pretty picture either. But all right, so you were in a warm embrace. New Year's Eve with the lovely Shirley. You looked into her eyes. Don't tell me you looked into her eyes. What color are Shirley's eyes, by the way? Can you tell me, Lubie?
Yes, they're brown.
Oh, okay.
I'm just checking.
Are like 80% of people have brown eyes? That's always a good guess when a woman asks you over the phone. You just had a date with her. You were staring into her eyes all night long as if you were really sincere. Holding hands while they were pouring champagne at the Cafe Max, and you were, enjoying, slowly savoring a very expensive dinner. Then you took her for a walk on the beach, made out like, bandits, and then the next day you're on the phone with her, and she says, "What color are my eyes?" And you're like,
red.
Huh? So you got to take a wild guess, and you just go, "Oh, they're lovely green eyes," which is a very low percentage call. It really is. Very low percentage, I can assure you. I don't know how many times, this was back in the day when, they used to have like a regular phone, and I don't know how many times I just heard a hard click. As if you were Nathaniel Hackett calling some GM and saying, "Hey, I'm available." Phone goes right down. All right, so you had a good time. Let's establish that. All right.
We had a good time, and it sounds like you had a good time too.
I had a great day that day. I was having a blast. I've been struggling a little bit, various elements with this broken toe, including like other complications that develop as a result of you favoring the way you're walking, and now the top of my foot is just so inflamed and painful at this point that I can't wait to see what the report is tomorrow. Although the toe itself doesn't seem to be, that big of a problem. I haven't bent it in a long time, but I'm sure it's still broken or whatever. But that's not really the problem. It's other stuff that's developed around it, not from infection, but just from the awkwardness of walking around in what is really like having one wooden shoe and one sneaker on. You got 1 foot in the Netherlands and 1 foot in the bayou, my friends. It's a Tab Benoit song. 1 foot in New York, 1 foot in the bayou. Talking about some woman that he's seeing at the time. All right, many, many things. All right, we have the college football final. That's set. It was an eye-opener for a lot of people. Many thought that there was a chance. I got to give Tony some props here, Segredo. He did say TCU could stay with Michigan. We were all over Michigan, thinking Michigan was just going to be too big, too tough, too strong. I'm quoting the professor here, who is a very astute college football handicapper. He liked Michigan, and I don't think he's inclined to pick Michigan or Big Ten teams. I don't think he's a big fan of the Big Ten. And neither am I, right? I never was a big Michigan fan, especially during the days when the Canes were competing for championships. I didn't really, enjoy Michigan that much. I hated Ohio State. I hated Notre Dame. Penn State, I've always despised. I mean, if we didn't know O.J. McDuffie, there'd be no reason to say anything but disparaging remarks about the Penn State program. Otherwise, it was all garbage, including, the total myth about Papa Joe being a real good guy. That went right out the window there. And I mean, it's unacceptable that went on forever. I know these people now that are playing for Penn State, which I did have a small wagering interest in Penn State yesterday, and it was nice to see them run away and hide in that ballgame. Utah, wow! I mean, Utah has pulled off that. They pulled off those two big, late upsets, especially rallying against USC. How bad is USC in the late going in a ballgame? My God. They lose to Tulane yesterday. That was a wild one. And that kind of set the stage for the story of the day. We'll get into the college stuff a little bit later on. But naturally, everybody's concern is for Damar Hamlin of the Buffalo Bills in a situation that I don't think has happened before, where a game was stopped because a player was injured. Even when you've had players paralyzed. You had Utley on the field there and Darryl Stingley, of course. I don't think they stopped the game. I'm pretty sure they just resumed play after the guy was taken off the field and everybody gave him the thumbs up. So this was, I guess, in that sense, unprecedented. Horrible to see. I mean, you're looking at the play, and I happened to tune in just as this was happening. I was watching something else, and then all of a sudden I said, "Oh yeah, the Monday night game should be on," and I tune in. I see it's like 7-3. And I think I tuned in right as that play was occurring. And you saw Hamlin, make a tackle that didn't look like it was anything that was going to cause any kind of serious injury. It was not head-to-head contact, so you're thinking there's no head trauma there. He gets up and collapses. And now we have learned later on that he had an incident of cardiac arrest, which, there was no way to know that. But obviously there were some indicators that something else was up besides head trauma when they had to administer CPR and give him oxygen and put him on a respirator right there on the field. And it was taking them 10 minutes to even deal with the idea of getting him into an ambulance while they were treating him on the field, which they did bring his heartbeat back. So, whatever the medical staff did, the quick response and we're hoping saved this young man's life. 24 years old, out of the University of Pittsburgh, and we didn't know anything about him. You're looking at the field there and thinking, and they had made the announcement they're going to give the two teams 5 minutes to get themselves together after the ambulance went off the field, and you're thinking that is the most absurd thing I've ever heard stipulated to. I have to give Zach Taylor a lot of credit. He showed a lot of dignity and class during that entire process, where he actually went over to McDermott, came across the field, and you could kind of see him saying, "Hey, if your guys don't want to play, that's perfectly okay with us." Which and they kept trying to sweep this aside, which obviously secondary it all became to a young man's life. What was the meaning of this game and the outcome? But it does create all kinds of weird, problematic scenes because the NFL, and I've mentioned this many times, one of the first interviews I ever did, and the stuff still struck me. And I can see the man across the desk. It was a general manager of the Angels at the time named Harry Dalton, who was a pretty prominent baseball figure and one of those old salty dog, old guard type of general managers. I don't know if you're familiar with Harry Dalton. Harry the Hat Dalton. Anyway, Harry Dalton, I was thrilled to get this interview, Lubie. I hadn't really gotten a job in the field yet. And I was trying to see if I could get some writing samples together and show that I had the ability to, go and interview guys that were at the top of, level of sports. Dalton was certainly among those figures in Los Angeles at the time. And he said to me, one of the things he said about, he was talking about the integrity of the game. I guess the whole Pete Rose thing was still circulating around and what it means to have the game be on the level. This is predating FanDuel and betting and wagering insanity that's going on now. But and he said, we sell a pennant race. That's a big part of what we're doing. I mean, the whole, even though, all of it is meaningless if you really look at it, right? I mean, what difference does it fucking make if the Giants win the Super Bowl? Does it really change your life? No. But we get attached to these things emotionally as sports fans, where we put a lot of our energy into it. It's great. It's a great release. I've always loved working in what is known as the toy department here. Could not have been more satisfied that I chose this path for my life. I mean, things could have gone a little bit better in some areas. They could have gone a whole lot worse. I might have never been able to do some of the things that I always set out to do, which when I look back on it now, which you do frequently as you start hitting your mid-70s. I guess I'm in my early 70s. I don't want to push it in the mid.
Early.
Yeah, very early 70s.
Very early.
But you look back and you think, hey, did I do the right thing by myself even? And where am I going from here? Because, I mean, it's not over yet, right? I'm maybe looking at a standing 8 count, but I feel good, outside of this one little setback. I mean, I was feeling great about life and everything that you could do. And I actually, every year you make these resolutions. I'm going to push myself to do more. But what you really want to push yourself to do is to do the things that make you happy.
Mhm.
And doing this for a living has always made me a very happy individual. I've gotten to meet great people. I've gotten to see great events and all kinds of different stuff. But as we were watching this unfold, I mean, you were thinking about, wait a minute, I know the player's life is of the most importance, right? Obviously, all of this other stuff is meaningless, the standings, this, that, and the other thing. But from the standpoint of the league and the fact that they sell a pennant race, so to speak, or a race to a championship, this thing has gargantuan and significant consequences, and I don't know what they do about it. I really don't. I mean, can you play this game? You can't ask Buffalo to hang around a couple of nights and come back and play. Now, perhaps if we got a word that, okay, Damar Hamlin is going to make a full recovery, he's going to be fine. In fact, he may even be on the injury report next week as questionable. That would be great. Nothing would make people happier than to find out this kid was okay. But what do you do about it? I don't know. I mean, you give each team a tie. You just have them play one less game because you're deciding things that are going to be of huge influence in how the outcome of the season goes, which you have been selling to people. And now with these betting platforms, I mean, think about it. You have guys that have enormous amounts of money bet on which team's going to win the Super Bowl and all of this other stuff that they have a literal, deep vested interest in it. And what you do about this circumstance, obviously, is going to be literally of great significance, no?
Well, it's funny you're saying that because as it is happening, and I'm not trying to be insensitive, but I'm watching and I'm going.
I don't think you're being insensitive by saying, hey, we know what's the most important thing here. Here are so many other considerations that are in play, and people are going to have to make very difficult decisions. And it's not going to be easy to make the right one.
So I had that thought during the game, and I'm like, there's no way I'm tweeting this right now. And I looked down, and who tweeted it? Skip Bayless. And he said, our thoughts with the guy. But how do they handle this? I do want to reiterate, that's not the most important thing right now. Of course, his health is. But of course, everything focused on.
Well, we know. I think that's a given. I really do. I mean, and you don't want to ignore that as the thing's transpiring, which I'm going to get to. This coverage, I thought was an embarrassment last night. I really did. I was ashamed to be in this business, watching these guys just stammering around.
You were ashamed. Oh,
God. Look, we do what we do, and we, tend to gravitate towards the absurd and the comedic and, the entertainment aspect of what's happening. And we've been tortured in bets and all kinds of stuff. And it's like we always say, unless you felt that pain, it's impossible to relate to these, people that they just arbitrarily throw up there now as a 4-man panel to tell you which way to go. And how many times have I read you the thing from Action Sports? And literally, you could not make a bigger attempt to bury the finances of the American people than these people are doing. Routinely wrong, game after game after game after game after game. Now, nobody's picking, 100% winners, but at least give me the confidence that there's a stronger likelihood you're going to win than lose. If you're going to consider yourself an expert and then offer your opinion, it's like, Lubie, a guy comes up to you at the track and says, who do you like? I don't even want to tell him, right? Because I don't want to influence anybody, and then, of course, if you give him a loser, it's like, the Forest, what do you know? It's like, well, you asked me who I like. I told you who I like. The horse lost. What do you want me to say? I bet him. I lost. Am I supposed to feel badly for you because you got sucked in? I did feel bad for Mayo with that KD Kakis, though. But he only bet a couple of bucks on it, so it wasn't like it was all that painful, and it really was worth a shot. All right, so anyway, this incident happens. I tune in the game. I see the guy collapse, and I'm like, that couldn't be from a concussion. That's got to be something else. If it was, then it was a concussion that he had incurred at some other time that just was exasperated by whatever energy he put into making his tackle on T. Higgins. The game looked like it was going to be a beaut, didn't it? I mean, you had Cincinnati scoring their opening drive. Buffalo answers back with a field goal after Cincy gets a touchdown. Cincinnati's already driving again, and this thing looks like it's going to be a wild shootout. So much is at stake because Cincinnati still has a chance, along with Buffalo, who was in the driver's seat, and especially if they win that game, and Kansas City, to get a very important, I mean, with the addition of teams into the postseason, which I'm normally not in favor of, it did become more and more important to have the best record in the league, and that sort of has these teams playing. If it was just the top two records in the division, I don't know that the last week of games would have that much meaning for all of these clubs. And here you have Cincinnati and Buffalo, both already in the playoffs, and Buffalo really, I mean, gets an extreme advantage if they end up with the number one seed. They get a bye in the first round of the playoffs, and then home field advantage through the rest of the AFC in Buffalo, which we've seen recently in the news as not a particularly favorable place for those that are unfamiliar with the conditions. Right?
No way.
So, I mean, huge advantage for the Buffalo Bills if they end up with the number one seed. Huge advantage for the Kansas City Chiefs if they end up with the number one seed. And wow, I mean, out of nowhere, the Bengals, who were floundering early in the season, have a chance to be the number one seed after going to the Super Bowl, it seems like a century ago, just last year.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
A lot of class also and dignity being shown by all of the Bengals players, I thought, including Joe Burrow came over. And I told you, every time I see Josh Allen, I like the guy more and more. And you could see that the Bills were, I mean, if anything was established in the hour of babbling that took place after this incident by, I mean, these are professional announcers. I mean, it's going to seem like I'm being petty. I don't know, Lubie. I mean, criticizing what happened after that, I think the rest of the world was just as stunned as Joe Buck at like $5 million a game. Troy Aikman at $5 million a game had nothing to say, nothing. They couldn't tell you anything about this player. I mean, Troy Aikman gets paid however much money for going over to ESPN. But wouldn't you take it upon yourself to at least Google the player and tell us something about this guy that was just taken away in an ambulance and we don't know his status? In fact, we're fearing the worst, that we may have seen something that I always thought was inevitable in the National Football League, that somebody was going to actually take a vicious hit to the head and die right there on the field, or somewhat in the immediate aftermath, the following month or so, like happens with many boxers. And, I mean, look, it's a stunning situation. I've been at boxing matches that ended up where they ring death. I was at one in particular. I watched a few on TV, but I actually was in attendance at the Olympic Auditorium in Los Angeles when Lupe Pintor, who was a bantamweight champion and, just this Mexican slugger, fought. They had brought this setup fight in there for him, a showcase. They brought this kid over from England named Johnny Owen. And Johnny Owen had no business being in a world title fight. The guy, literally, Lubie, obviously, you're not going to be, with a lot of blubber if you're fighting at 118.
Yeah.
But this guy was almost emaciated to make 118 and had no power whatsoever. And he was going to have to stand in there with this monster puncher. And sure enough, he gets knocked out, and you could tell it was not good. I mean, you could tell this was Duk Koo Kim. This was Zora Foley. I mean, we've seen ring deaths, and we've seen it happen. A friend of mine actually was involved in a subsequent fight not that long after that, same division, and he actually was supposed to fight Pintor maybe that night. But they finagled it with the WBC, and they stuck this other guy in there for an easy payday, and he ended up dead. I happened to be there. There's a pall, obviously, cast over the entire event that would have you, set back to the point where, all right, it might take you a while to gather your thoughts or whatever. But with all of these professional announcers, I mean, that was embarrassing. Susie Colbert was embarrassing last night. Did you catch this? I mean, it kept... If I'm the director of that show, and this is what I got from my three studio people, Schefter, who's usually, right, I mean, full of stuff. And you're thinking, Schefter, if anybody could sniff out what's going on here, it might be Schefter, right? Get on the phone at him and see what you can find out. Now, I don't blame him if he couldn't find out anything. He wasn't there. And yet, I mean, how is it that the information from this marketing agent was out there in public before ESPN? I still don't think they've said anything about what this guy's remarks were. I think they finally clarified that they restored his vital signs and that he had been induced into some kind of a sleep coma, whatever, and that they were hoping for the best. That at least there were signs of life with Damar Hamlin, and that would have been good news. But did you see these guys? They're stammering in there. Booger McFarland, was literally rendered speechless. I don't know how many times you can say, "Well, our thoughts and prayers are with this guy." We know that. Tell me something. And to be critical of this, I mean, for me, it was embarrassing in this sense that we've seen guys transition in the sporting world. We often joke about how they send the sports guy out to do the hurricane coverage, Lubie, and they send some unfortunate soul that's like the backup to the third anchor, and he's 90 degrees off the ground, parallel to the ground, hanging onto a tree while his wig blows to the pier, and trying to tell you, it's unbelievable out here. That's one thing. But we've seen guys. I mean, look, the great Jim McKay. Well, when he had to transition, all of a sudden he's covering the Munich games, and you have these assassinations done of the Israeli wrestlers, and that became. I mean, obviously that was the story at that point. Now this guy is talking about, well, you know what, the boxing team looks like it's going to be well represented here, and all of a sudden you're in the middle of just an horrific news story, but handled it like a champ. I mean, Howard Cosell, for all of the critics, is on Monday Night Football when John Lennon is shot mysteriously and the news breaks, and it was able to transition. Even Chris Berman, known for being a clown and somewhat of his funny antics, when they had the earthquake during the World Series in San Francisco, transitioned into reporting on it, and did a good job. That's what you're getting paid to do. You can't be rendered speechless in this. I mean, Susie Kolber was reduced to just mumbling under her breath. I don't even know what she was saying. Schefter looked shell-shocked and offered zero perspective. Booger McFarland couldn't say anything except our thoughts and prayers are with him. I mean, no, I don't want to tune in Joel Osteen. Tell me something about this kid. Something, anything. Who is he? I mean, and to just dismiss everything and say, well, you know what, we're not going to talk about any of that. They had no information. That's fine. I mean, maybe they, because of the delicacy of the situation, they don't want to give a bunch of premature evaluations and say, one way or the other what's going to happen with Damar Hamlin. I'm okay with that, but there should be some perspective, like a medical guy, anything. I mean, I don't really like speculating about injuries. Like a guy goes down and go, well, that looks like an ACL. How do you know, right? I mean, what are you, an MRI machine? I don't know, from the booth. But in this case, it was clear something different was happening. It might have called for, a little bit of hustle. Give me Narduzzi on the phone or something, and shed some light on who this young man is. Get some kind of perspective on it. And they had nothing. Now, it's not unprecedented, too. I mean, you had Hank Gathers collapse during a game and die, and I guess it's happened, on the high school level? I don't know that of any college players outside of Gathers. I don't know of anybody in football that ever just collapsed on the field and eventually passed away. We've seen it from workouts.
Preseason, like Corey Stringer with the Vikings. We've had it in preseason. We've never had it in a game like that.
And I thought it was an inevitability. I thought there's going to be the day where the and this happened. It struck me going all the way back to like not just Darryl Stingley. We didn't really know much about this whole thing about head injuries and paralysis. It just seemed like a fluke. Utley, when Utley was on the ground, and that was the other thing. I mean, there was no allusion to the idea that in many situations you're just hoping a guy moves a fingertip or something. And gives you some kind of sign that it's not a catastrophic injury to the extent where, a young man is going to be paralyzed for the rest of his life and obviously have, his life completely compromised because he's out there playing a game. I thought it was as poorly handled as I've ever seen. Joe Buck, nothing to say, zero. Aikman, the usual vapid self, with no idea, no insight. I mean, this guy's been on the field 100 million times. When guy. Doesn't it, seem like in the NFL, every fifth play, somebody is being looked at? Well, or is writhing on the ground in pain? At college, too, same thing. I mean, a ton of injuries in this sport.
I get you can't focus on the standings during this, but you have to have something to say. What's interesting is Twitter thought they did a great job.
Really?
It shows you how little expectations people have of broadcasters now. Like they're so used to everything being cookie cutter that
They
when
could have gone to other programming during that hour, and it would have been better serving the public, I thought.
that's what I thought they should have done,
Yeah.
because none of these people are equipped for this. Like that's the problem with having everyone be cookie cutter bullshit.
Yeah.
Is when something real happens, no one can handle it. No one has the gravitas to handle something real. Like
There are examples of things like this that have happened. Maybe not quite. I don't know of any incidents where an NFL player has suffered a heart attack while playing. But I mean, there had to be more that they could have brought to the table than just, well, here we are, and our thoughts and prayers are with obviously Damar Hamlin and his family, and okay, we'll throw to a break there, and then we'll come back, and Susie Colbert will fumble her way through some comments while Adam Schefter looks as pasty as we've ever seen him, and Booger McFarland continues to talk about how his thoughts and prayers are with the family of Damar Hamlin, as if they wouldn't be otherwise, right?
that's the thing, is like this thing has never happened, but things have happened.
Yeah.
And like you have to divert
Plenty of
your
grave
attention.
situations.
Like you have to be able to talk. Yeah, I don't know. It's they found them and they didn't know what to do. And when networks don't know what to do, they usually go the wrong way. And that's, I guess,
Yeah.
what happened is they lingered and lingered. And then the NFL, instead of just, they had made a decisive action, which they could have. Once they did CPR on the field, like this was like nothing we've seen. To think that you were going to play that game again was just short-sighted. There's no way that game.
Yeah, can you imagine going back into the relatively angry mode that you usually see football being played at?
They're hugging, they're
Right.
praying together, there's tears. Now they have to go hit each
And all of
other.
a sudden, you're going to go knock the crap out of each other in a game that has
A lot of meaning.
tremendous consequences for both teams depending on the outcome, and for a lot of people that were involved in it. And look, it loomed as it's going to be just a great piece of entertainment. I'm sure they were all very deflated, but no hustle whatsoever on the part of the production crew. They had no information, no insight, no perspective, nothing about. I mean, we knew the kid's mother, unfortunately, had to witness this from the stands there, but what was riding to the hospital with Damar Hamlin. And then we find out there'll be no updates from the hospital, even though there were updates on social media that were coming from this marketing agent named Rooney, who was disseminating at least some information about what the young man's circumstances were.
So that was the thing I thought was like, I came in late because I didn't understand. Like I saw that there was a delay and I thought maybe it was weather. So I went to watch the game and I'm like, a delay for an injury. I'm like, what's going on? And then they're like, the info was sporadic. And they're like, oh, there was CPR done on the field. I'm like, how does ESPN have all these resources? And I understand HIPAA and all that, but no one wants to get the information out at all. Like, I thought that was so strange that they couldn't get you literally had to be on Twitter to find out information about this thing.
Yeah.
Like, that seems so strange.
Well, and it also was just weird the way they kept going around the horn there, and literally it was like watching people assembling at a funeral. Seeing Buck and Aikman and I mean Susie Colbert, a disaster. And not to pick on her, but that was a disastrous performance. If you were on TV, it was almost like you had a meltdown. And Booger McFarland, not exactly my idea of you're not expecting him to be David Susskind or anything, but not to imply that he's not an intelligent person. He speaks well enough, but he never had anything to say when he was on Monday Night Football. Aikman and Joe Buck, I mean, I should be on their knees thanking Booger McFarland for being horrible with that stupid, cart that he was in. And then who was the tight end from the Cowboys that they brought
Jason
in?
Witten, the great Jason Witten.
Oh my God! I mean, among the worst commentators I've ever seen. How do they get these lifeless people to be color commentators? I know you don't necessarily want to get like Sam Kinison in the booth, but give me something, huh? And to be unable to, even shed the slightest bit of light or perspective on what was happening, I thought was an embarrassment by all five people that were involved there. And, they have plenty of resources at ESPN. They could have done just about anything and ended up giving you nothing. They kept coming back to the stadium. You're seeing the fans still sitting there.
Which was the most awkward thing.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't understand any of that. The whole thing was handled so poorly.
Well, it's tough to say on that end, just because we haven't seen that before, like you said, with the guy on a respirator down there on the field. seen bettors on a respirator. If they took some shots at home, not to make light of Damar Hamlin. Look, the kids seem like these are great stories, all of them. I mean, they really are. Not all of them, but necessarily represent great people. But here's a guy that was picked in the 6th round out of Pittsburgh, and had started 14 of the 30 games he's partaken in the National Football League, and he's on a potential championship team as an important component. He's out there early in the ball game trying to make plays on T. Higgins, a dynamite receiver for the Cincinnati Bengals. And they talked about this and touched on it a little bit, with the this was this guy's dream was to do this, but it brings up a very interesting topic going all the way back to my 3rd grade research project, Lubie, if you can believe this. This is how far advanced Andy can relate to this, and maybe some of our other ex-New Yorkers. And I was shocked. Nassau County in Long Island, where I moved to with my parents when I was 11 in the 5th grade, is the highest taxed county, I believe, maybe in the country, in terms of property tax and all kind of whatever tax you're paying there. It's among the highest, if not the highest, county in terms of taxpayer dollars, and has been, I think, for a long time, right? Even going back to when I moved there. So you would think the educational system there, what was going to be top notch by comparison to the public school system in New York City in the 1950s. And yet, the truth was, we had to do a research paper in the 3rd grade. It might have been the 4th grade, Libby. 4th grade research paper. And you had to kind of research your own controversial, debatable topic. So at the time, that was the time. That was right after Zora Foley had been killed in a ring. And there was a lot of speculation that the sport should be abolished. And so that's when I wrote my 4th grade term paper on. And it was interesting, though, because, you had to research both sides. Should boxing be abolished? What was my term paper? And, I looked into it from a lot of different angles. And I was already like a huge diehard boxing fan, which I don't want to get too out there, right? But could it be that we've lived before, right? Why would I, in the 3rd, 4th grade, be like so interested in like researching Jack Dempsey fights and stuff like that? And watch any boxing. I mean, fortunately for me, they had the Gillette Fight of the Week. But and there was Foley on national television, the Gillette Fight of the Week, getting knocked out. Subsequently, died from the result of his, catastrophic ring injuries. And it fueled, again, the debate about whether or not boxing should be abolished. And I mentioned, too, that my buddy who I spoke to on New Year's Day, my friend Albert Davila, he was involved in a ring death where he fought a guy for their championship, and the guy died as a result of the injuries that he suffered, the head trauma from these couple of shots that he took in the 12th round of the fight. And that was after they had already reduced fights to 12 rounds for championship fights because of the reaction. At least they did something in the sport to try and, prevent these kind of catastrophic injuries from happening as they were becoming more and more frequent. And you've seen less of it, although it still goes on. And here's the thing: it's always going to be debatable. I mean, but by no realm of logic could you really, sanction what goes on in a football game. Think about it. At that level of professional football, and it is true, Libby. Look, you look for a flag every 5th play and somebody to be down on the field every 5th play.
Yep.
No?
Yep. 100%.
Okay, and we shrug our shoulders. He tore his ACL there, and he may never walk again. But fortunately, that mode of medicine, orthopedic medicine, has made such amazing advances that's no longer career-ending, right? Ask Jim Lonborg. Had a torn ACL, and they just about amputated the guy's leg. That was it. Never was the same after that. And you would never think of the guy coming back, from an injury like that, even early on in the National Football League. So they've made great strides there. But there's an inherent risk that all of these guys sign up for. And the question is, should society sanction a guy's right to go out there and risk his life, literally? Because I remember my friend Albert, at the time, we had done a piece about him a few years later. And he was still fighting. And, I asked him, about this was a family guy, real good guy. I mean, didn't have a bad thing to say about anyone, Bit of a wise guy, too, like me. I always loved his sarcasm, talking about different people, but, didn't have a mean bone in his body. outside of when he was fighting in a ring, which he just viewed purely as sport. Like Danny Jacobs, the Miracle Man, said to us, "Hey, I just view this as sport." But I asked him about the fighter's name was Kiko Bejinas. I said, how did you end up, sort of rectifying this with yourself so that you could continue your career? And he looked at me straight in the eye, Lubie, and he said, "It could have been me," which is what these guys understand. Now, in boxing, where the object of the game is to render your opponent unconscious. Look, there's a high risk factor there. No, you're signing up for that. It's implied in your pursuit of doing this and participating in this particular sport. That there's this danger there. And now in the NFL, that's also there. But should this level of violence be sanctioned? I mean, you could have serious questions about that, Libby. As much as we enjoy the entertainment of the game, and I was looking forward to the game last night, like anybody else. I'm glad, like pretty much everybody, that didn't resume the game, which would have been ridiculous. But I mean, and fortunately, I mean, this was not the result of two guys colliding helmet to helmet, which you're seeing at least 4 or 5 incidents a game of that sort of thing, whether they call it targeting or not. So I don't know. I mean, if you really look at it, it's hard to condone this level of violence in a sport, is it not?
Oh yeah, look, the whole thing is ridiculous. But we live in a country where you have a right to do what you want. Like that's my thing is, as long as you're made aware of the consequences, because that was the biggest problem to me is that we didn't realize just how bad football was. But now we do. We know what it is. So to me, it's if you accept it, it doesn't make it less barbaric, but that's just life though. Like we accept that when we get in a car, there's a high probability we'll get in a fucking accident, but we still drive the goddamn car. Like in an airplane, it doesn't happen often, but you never know what's gonna like. That's just life.
Could go down. Yeah.
And I'm not trying to make light of it. I'm glad eventually they didn't play the game, but
you could walk out in the water at Atlantis, trip over some rocks, hit your head,
exactly.
And that's it. No standing 8 count, can't be saved by the bell, and the lifeguard is having a Bahama Mama. And sitting there going, is that a body floating face down in the water? Interesting. Jellyfish? Some woman, by the way, got stung by a jellyfish. I saw this on the news. Man of war out there in the ocean. Maybe it's good. I'm taking all the time off here. But, I mean, I had never seen a reaction like this, man. She had like lacerations on both arms. Such ugliness, my friend. Those things are nothing to mess with, right?
I know that, but I've never seen people look like they were in a burn unit.
Literally, I mean, it looked like she had been beaten with whipped at the whipping post. I mean, I've never seen a reaction like that. I guess, you get these allergic reactions to the poison that's in these jellyfish, and, anything can happen. My son got stung one time, and wow, I mean, his whole body was like red as, a brand new basketball. It was, that was just opened up in an ABA arena. Unbelievable. But so be careful out there if you're heading into the water. All right, we have a lot more to discuss here, and we'll open up the platform. I don't know. I just thought if you're a professional announcer and you have 5 of them, somebody should actually rise to the occasion. Lisa Salters was okay, the sideline reporter. She at least was able to, say something and put some things in perspective. And she was there on the sideline, so maybe she had a little bit more, of an advantage over the other guys. But Joe Buck's announced 1 million games. He had to have seen many, many incidents of this type. Troy Aikman, has had like 100 concussions.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
He would know what it's like to be traumatized by a football game. No perspective on that.
Don't you go into
Schefter actually saved a friend of mine, believe it or not. This is an odd fact about Adam Schefter. You may know this man, Alan T. Brown. He was a publicist. And when I was first working at 790, when they first formulated this thing, he was like a member of their board of directors and was in charge of, various aspects of public relations, which he was great at. But he was body surfing, I believe, at Jones Beach on Long Island. A wave took him, hit him, threw him down, and he became paralyzed that instant. And who pulled him out of the water? From Belmore Kennedy High School, Adam Schefter.
Oh, wow.
So Schefter even knows what it's like to be involved in this kind of trauma. And I don't know. He couldn't say anything. It was really, really weird to watch. It was an hour of some of the worst produced television I've ever seen under the circumstances. and they kept coming back to the stadium with the score 7-3. And you're asking yourself, I mean, and they didn't. I don't know. I mean, should they have shown this again? This play? I mean, where the guy gets up and collapses. I mean, did we need to see that a few more times or no? What do you think? Because there were people that had no idea what actually happened.
I didn't know what happened. I wouldn't have minded it, but they've gotten into a weird place of showing things that are too graphic. I just don't like coverage like this. It feels like the Olympics and stuff like that knows what to do. They go to stories about the person. They go to people who know the person. They go.
I mean, give me some perspective on who this Damar Hamlin is. An unlikely tester type client who made it out of the 6th round to starting for a very prominent title contending team, and then. I don't know. I mean, just to kind of finalize some thoughts on this. I'm sure we'll talk to John about it too, because he has the University of Pittsburgh ties to the kid. But I mean, the circumstance for the NFL, I think, is a big problem. No, how would you handle this aside from the thoughts and prayers? But I mean, Cincinnati, needs to beat the Buffalo Bills to put themselves into a place where this last game of the season, which comes up this Sunday, is going to have some kind of significance, and they will know where they stand, and that would obviously determine a lot. Maybe they want to rest players in that final game if they're locked into a certain situation. I mean, many things are sort of hanging in the balance. The Buffalo Bills, as we said, would have a tremendous advantage if they got the number 1 overall seed, which they've been in a position to have all year. And it's one of the exciting aspects of what's happened in the National Football League, in spite of the fact that some shit teams are going to make the postseason, including Tom Brady's Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And maybe, the Detroit Lions have a chance, Seattle Seahawks, and maybe even. Hey, that went a little better this week.
Better.
It's a new year.
Yeah, it sounded better.
Your Miami Dolphins.
Yeah, that was shit teams.
Do we write an epitaph for them? Everybody already has.
Oh my God.
How were the Jets favored in the opening line over the Dolphins? After this atrocity we witnessed the Jets, execute in Seattle, where Geno Smith got sweet revenge, right? The reverse sucker punch there, just came right back and hit him right in the face there. Way to go, Rex!
I'm seeing the Dolphins favorite because both are an atrocity.
They're favored now by 1 1/2 because I think Bridgewater is going to be able to play. I believe that opening line was based.
Yesterday it was Thompson. Bridgewater wasn't going to play. Bridgewater broke a finger on his hand.
It turned out it wasn't broken. It's dislocated, and they did the old Ronnie Lott thing.
Oh, really? That'd be interesting.
Yeah, he went, cut me, Mick. And so they put it back in place, and now apparently he's okay. They were about to sign Bubby Brister. Did you see that?
Taking it.
They would have had Skylar Thompson, their scrub from the taxi squad, and who's distinguished himself in the preseason. People thought he should start over Tua.
There you go.
And he's okay. I have no problem with this guy. I mean, he's kind of acquitted himself pretty well. He wasn't able to pull off this victory, but I'll give him credit. He did drive him down there for a unfortunate for me backdoor cover touchdown late in the ball game, which was impressive for a guy that's been on ice for a while and probably was questionable to make the roster because you don't usually keep that. What was he, like the 4th quarterback at the time? Might have been. I guess what was he, 3rd string or 4th when the season opened up?
Who?
Skylar Thompson.
Thompson's 3rd. It was
3rd. Okay.
Bridgewater, then Thompson. People just love Thompson because he was a gunslinger.
Well, he looked good against Scribini talent there. As we often say, everybody says this every time you watch the preseason. Hey, don't pay any attention to this. And then we put, monumental importance on everything that happened in the preseason. But that's the way sports fans are. All right, our thoughts naturally are with Damar Hamlin. I mean, nothing would be more favorable than to find out that the kid's okay. I mean, it's tragic when you see this sort of thing. It is an inherent risk that's in the game, although, you're not expecting a guy to have a heart attack. And how did they handle this with Hank Gathers? Remember when he collapsed?
Oh, I don't know. That was before my time. If I was either not alive or super young.
I was around. That was Paul Westhead, right? Was he was the coach? And
Yes.
Yeah, and what was it? Loyola Marymount. And they were a high-flying, high-wire act, and Gathers was, garnering a lot of attention around the country and was a real good story. And, wow, it just collapsed. I mean, what do you do after that? Now, obviously, they did not play the rest of that game. But do they reschedule this game? I mean, is this game going to be played? When would you
How
play?
do you not? Okay, how do you not?
If you
Like, you
don't
know,
play this game, it's got serious, ramifications in terms of how the playoffs stack up. I mean, all of a sudden, does Kansas City become an automatic number one seed because Buffalo played one less game?
yeah, how does that work? I mean, I understand that didn't. I understand last night during the game.
When could you play it too? I mean, when are you going to play it? Wednesday, and then ask these guys to come back on Sunday?
Arnie's talking about playing it next week and then postponing the playoffs for a week.
Can you see that happening? I mean, you have all these stadium arrangements. You have people that have made arrangements to go to games. Or well, I guess they don't know the locations yet, but you obviously have a lot of different things behind the scenes that go on in staging a sporting event that's going to be attended by 60,000 people, involving this level of competition where you finally got into the postseason. That would be the logical thing, but then what would happen? They play an isolated game 1 week. They have one game, and it's Cincinnati Buffalo. That would be strange, wouldn't it?
I look, Sarni's not wrong. Like, I don't know what you do with any of this. We're trying to normalize a really psychotic situation.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know how you say now you have to play. Like, if the players are out of it, how do you get mad at them for that? Like, I don't.
Well, and you would hope you would have some positive information about Damar Hamlin, sooner than later. Like maybe today, we find out the guy's going to be all right. And at that point, it becomes, a win-win for the Gipper type of story for the Buffalo Bills. And they, naturally would be inspired, you would think, to go out there and really put one on. But if they play one less game, and so do the Bengals, now you concede home field to the Kansas City Chiefs. If they played one less game, I would think that would be the logical move, that they just don't play. And maybe they do. You can't really... You can't toss a coin to decide who's going to get that bye in the first week of the playoffs, but that becomes a gigantic edge for whichever team is in that position.
I don't know.
The interesting part of the season was that these teams were going to be battling it out head to head for this.
Yes, that's the whole that's my thing. This isn't like the Pirates. Do they win 58 games or 59 games to the Marlins?
It's not like the Marlins, where if the second baseman dropped dead, they might just use them as a bag to save money on having to put lime on the base itself. That's maybe a little harsh. They did sign that shortstop from the Phillies. What's his name? Segura?
Segura, yes. Yeah.
Okay. Where you go to Cam Meng? A legitimate player, right? So now that's it for Miggy, huh? Done. Our favorite Marlin. We love Miggy Rojas. I mean, he wasn't a great player, but it wasn't like rooting for Eddie Brissou. I don't know.
No, he was solid. He was competent.
Oh, he was such a good guy. I mean, it's not like he passed away. He's a good guy. He still remains one. All right, Hialeah Park. Kicking off 2023 with a bang. Absolutely brilliant party there for New Year's Eve. A lot of good stuff on tap. Jackpots being won. I was in, Mustang really had to drag me to this local casino, even though the dinner was free. And I was so reluctant. I had a nice day at the track, and I was thinking that for all of the celebrations I had, I don't want to throw like a couple of $100 away playing these dumb machines because they never pay. Never. I never went on them. I used to back in the day, and then they must have had some guy come in there and recalibrate with a little flashlight. Because the four aces on the video poker and the royal flushes were not as common anymore. In fact, I don't remember the last time I've seen one. So I don't play those machines there, and so I'm not the kind of client that they want roaming around after a freebie dinner on New Year's Eve. But at Hialeah Park, it's just amazing. I mean, people are winning jackpot after jackpot. And, sometimes that looks like a come on, right? They used to say that about a certain other now rather large casino here in town that, guys were winning big jackpots, but the rest of the people were just having blood sucked out of their system as they sat down. I mean, they actually hooked you up to a needle and you were donating blood as you were putting your money in the machine. May as well get something good out of it, right? You see that stick disappear there in no time flat? You're down to like 6 cents and you're starting to play lower denominations, right? Always ugly. And you're thinking, will the machine give me my 6 cents or does it just eat that up? Which is a nice little, it's called breakage at the track, man. But the fact that they comp every penny it's like, it's not enough. You took like $99.75 out of my $100 bill. You can't spit me out a quarter. And what do you do with a quarter now, Louis? Nothing. You fire it. But you don't have any of this stress, this anxiety at Hialeah Park because they are programmed to have you just have the time of your life, and that's why people love it there. It's like going to. It'd be like if you went to a friend's house and they had like a full blown casino, and you didn't have to worry about breaking a bank. I mean, it's just absolutely fantastic. A lot of amenities come along with having a player's card, including many free opportunities there. Free play being my two favorite words that you can put together in the casino business. And then, they have the boxing coming up. That's going to be great. And David Morrell is the guy, the name of the Cuban kid who is like top notch, but he's fighting out of Minnesota now. I think they shipped him off there to get him away from the distractions of Miami, Lubie. Does that make some sense? Because look what happened to Yoriokas Gamboa, man. The guy was great. Then all of a sudden, we didn't know he had a little bit of a glass jaw. That kid was good. But they have a couple of guys, young Cuban prospects also, Leon and Louis de Cubas, that are right up there. I mean, ready to make their ascent into that David Morrell world, class superstar category. And they're going to be featured on this card at Hialeah Park. So that's going to be great. Looking forward to that. All the great events there. You want to have a party? That's the place to throw it. People are always asking Mayo's page. Let's Eat South Florida. They'll be right. Hey, where can I have a party for 40 people?
Yep.
Take a little drive down to Hialeah Park, and you'll have yourself a ball, and it'll be in an atmosphere that really is inspiring, including just even when I've been losing there, I just look out and go, okay, there is a God, Lubie. There is a God. Look at this. This is absolutely fantastic. And then, it sparks all of the memories of all the great times I had there over the years, including chasing that young exercise rider all around the rooftop and into the publicity office, which did not go unnoticed, I don't think. Very tolerant to people there of indiscretions. It's not like your T.J. Holmes and Amy Robach, where, you get thrown off the air for maybe, doing something that, as Joe Willie would say, it's un-American not to want to be in the company of a pretty girl. Was that not his greatest line? Joe Namath? I think so. It's un-American, my friend. All right, but there's nothing un-American about Hialeah Park. I mean, they want you to have a great time. It's absolutely fantastic. They do have that Latin flair, though,
Yes.
which makes it even better, man. Because let's face it, even a clumsy, klutzy, uncoordinated old Jew with no rhythm like me, you can't help when you hear a little oye como va. Just get the body moving there and get the spirit moving as well. It's all happening. It's a beautiful thing. Hialeah Park, all your favorite casino-style games, Vegas-style games in the casino. The poker room is fantastic, man. And they have the handicapping championship coming up, too, the NHC thing. And that's at the end of January. So get some details on that at HialeahPark.com. And make sure you plan to clear your social calendar in 2023 and make many visits to beautiful Hialeah Park. All right, the great one himself, John Congemi, right? We're going to connect with John. That's fantastic. Looking forward to having a conversation with John Congemi and welcoming in 2023. And that'll be brought to you by Jimmy Johnson's Big Chill, which saw somebody taking some pictures there. One of our old contemporaries was down there. What was that guy? The Diz. Remember the amigo of Diz?
Yeah.
Phil Dominic, I believe is his name.
Yes.
It was a weird kind of show, man, although we like both people. But I don't know. We're so peculiar, right? Here I am criticizing ESPN's crew. I thought that was poor. If they did a good job, I'd be the first to tell you, hey, wow, great job by these guys. Look, I was on the air doing a talk show when the planes crashed into the World Trade Center. Talk about transitioning from comedy into reality there. You have to be able to do it, man. You have to be able to do it.
When Douglas happened, we did a week.
Yeah.
What are you going to do? I mean, these people are supposed to be ready for
hurricanes. You have to be able to switch it up and
Yes.
be able to at least do something. Do your job, right? Do your job, Bill Belichick. All right, guy that's always doing a great job, John Congemi, going to join us here in just a few moments. We'll be back with John and his Pigskin Playbook in a moment. Now that it's 8:05. Play the ponies in style at Champions, the outstanding simulcasting room at beautiful Hialeah Park. Yes, the grand old lady of thoroughbred racing has never been more vibrant, and you can wager on the races from the top tracks around the country while enjoying a cocktail at the Brass Rail Bar or any of the fine food served throughout the facility. If poker is your game, you're covered in style, and you can play all your favorite Vegas-style games, including blackjack, craps, and roulette, in Hialeah Park's sizzling hot casino. Get a player's card when you walk through the door for all kinds of generous amenities, including our favorite, free play. when you come out to the ultimate casino and entertainment destination, Hialeah Park.
Hey folks, Tony Segreto here. You know, since day one, Catholic Health Services has been part of Old School. And since we've started letting people know about them, it's changed their lives. You see, Catholic Health Services, while being recognized as one of the top places for stroke rehab in the country, it's also about a group of people who not just excel in what they do, from the doctors to the nurses to the therapist, on and on and on. It's how they do what they do every single day that separates them from the pack. They do it with a passion, unmatched, and the inclusion of family in every step of the process. Trust me when I tell you this. If you want the best, unmatched rehab with a special group of skilled, caring people, there is truly only one place, and that one place is Catholic Health Services.
These days, we're all looking for comfort anywhere we can find it. Thank goodness for Landlubbers Raw Bar and Grill in the Plantation location, because they are making sure you are as comfortable as possible. First of all, they're not only open for delivery and pickup. All you have to do is go to landlubbersbarandgrill.com for both pickup and free delivery. Their hours have changed a little bit. Monday through Thursday from 3:30 to 10, and Friday, Saturday, and Sunday from 11:30 to 10. You're going to have the best wings in the world. You're going to have a great burger. You're going to have their amazing soups. Again, Landlubbers Raw Bar and Grill. It's nice and easy. Just go to landlubbersbarandgrill.com for both your pickup and free delivery. Thank goodness for Landlubbers for making you always feel right at home.
We welcome to the show John Congemi, who joins us for Dateline Dolphins. John, how are you, my friend?
Defo, I'm doing well, and that's not the only thing that's going to reach a new height. I'll be at about 220, 225 after this football season if we visit too much. Because the food's outstanding down at Jimmy Johnson's Big Chill.
Grab a bagel and a schmear, plus some Defo and Lubie. Welcome back to the Defo Show.
All right, welcome back to our first offering here of 2023 on South Florida Live. Jeff DeForest, we got Mike Lubie. Lubie's, you're getting better looking, man. Well, with this prosperity that you're enjoying here, with the new home and everything, looking sharp today, and always looking sharp. And one of our favorites to talk to about anything, especially during the Pigskin Playbook. Brought to you by Jimmy Johnson's Big Chill, marker 104, the Overseas Highway in Key Largo. The handsome one himself, Mr. John Congemi. John, I know you were what? How did your travels go? I mean, it was a real clusterfuck, I guess. I saw a Southwest Airlines flight. I was sitting out by the pool yesterday for a little while, and I'm looking up in the sky there, and we happen to be like sort of near the flight pattern there by Fort Lauderdale Airport. So you see these planes as they're rocketing their way upward. I saw a Southwest Airlines flight, and then I heard an alarm go off because it was identified as an unknown flying object. They categorize it as a UFO. I mean, they were so unused to seeing that orange and blue. I thought maybe it was a Gator charter flight or something. But how are your travels? I mean, you went to Toronto. Tell us a little about your holiday.
Just in Toronto, visiting family, and it was easy because it was a direct flight, but the airports were definitely a mess. You're right, Defo, about Southwest. I ride by 595 going down east. And you see the colors of Southwest on the I guess it would be the north side of the airstrips there, the airfield, and there are 6-8 planes just parked over the last week waiting to take off and nowhere really to go. It's been crazy, I guess, at the airports with traffic and parking and finally getting on a flight and people staying at different destinations. At the airports. I've been a veteran of that through my years of covering college football. Sometimes you have to get 2 hours of sleep in an airport before you catch a flight. So it's especially during the holidays. It's Thanksgiving and Christmas, the worst two times to travel.
Well, I was saying the other day before we closed out 2022 on a show, and I was traveling the Big East circuit with the University of Miami basketball team. And so you're in the dead of winter in the Northeast, and it happened to be a particularly harsh winter those 2 years. And it was amazing what you had to do to finagle your way in and out of cities like Pittsburgh, which, can be a problem if they only have like one flight out of there that's going anywhere near your direction and it gets canceled. Now, all of a sudden, you're scrambling, trying to find, a place where you can get a sandwich with French fries piled to the ceiling there so you can pass the night and maybe find a hotel room. And it isn't easy, right? Because you've already returned your rental car and now you're going to go back to another thing. So anyway, I'm glad you had good travels, and the holiday season treated you well. You look great, by the way.
Everything was good. You know, I've been worried a little bit about you. I'm glad you got your voice back, but the 8 in the hook has been bothering me for
oh
a couple
no,
weeks now. And
it's ugly. I do think they get this 9th one against the Jets. I mean, I know people thought they were going to, beat the Packers, that was going to be it. That didn't go well. Last week against the Patriots, unfortunately, Tua out again, and that didn't go well, although Bridgewater was decent for a good portion of the game. But he always seems to have that thing like the USC defense where there is going to be the play that collapses all of the good and negates all of the good that he did throughout the ball game. And, that there it was, that pick six where he got hurt.
Yeah, turn the game completely around, that was the play you kind of circle with that black Sharpie, and you go, wow, if that's incomplete, it's okay.
Yeah,
if that's tipped to the ground, it's no problem, because the Dolphins, you felt like New England wasn't going to be able to do anything offensively.
You weren't
to win that game. If you put it on them and you kept winning field position like the Dolphins did at the beginning of the third quarter. New England comes out, they go 3 and out. Pilardi doesn't punt it really well. Dolphins gain 10 or 12, 15 yards. Same thing. Miami doesn't do much, but then New England does less than that. And you get the ball on the plus side of the 50-yard line. You're thinking, okay, this game's going to now turn. And, after the Dolphins give up a field goal and they're still up 14-10, Duggan comes in. I think that was the 7th offensive score for the New England defense. That was his 3rd pick six of the year. The one guy playing in the middle of the field, he's almost like a rover position where he's just reading the quarterback's eyes, and he's able to go anywhere he wants. It led him right to the football, and then nobody can make a tackle. And to combat the injury, to the finger, the pinky finger of Bridgewater, you got Skyler sitting on the sidelines. It's 50 degrees, but still you haven't done anything in an hour and a half.
He's been on ice for a while too.
Yeah, so always a tough situation for the backup to the backup to go in.
Yeah,
the Dolphins did that at 3 or 4 positions that day: quarterback, left tackle, safety, cornerback. I mean, you're playing guys in a game, a meaningful game, that where you line up on a goal line stand after a timeout, you're not covering a wide receiver. There were things that added up into that game where the Dolphins still had a legitimate chance to win, but you couple all the things that we just touched on, plus 9 penalties for 71 yards, not going to win.
Such ugliness. No, it was ugly.
And I get they have injuries, and I understand their injuries. They're on their 3rd left tackle, and their offensive line was already shaky. I understand that. But at this point, we're looking at every team. They have a lot of injuries. The Bills have played with backup secondary the entire season. Like, once you get to this point and the guys have been gone, it's just what's beat what has been. Like, and I sung his praises. I liked the hire, and he seemed fun. But he hasn't adjusted at all. Like, Mike McDaniel has not made any adjustments, and they still, whatever the quarterback situation is, they have lots of guys that have talent on this team, and Mike McGinnicki might not fit their offense, but the dude can catch balls. Like Raheem Mostert and Wilson are good at doing multiple things. You have Hill, you have Waddle. They were non-factors in this game, and I don't care how good the Patriots defense is. This isn't the freaking Ravens of 2000. And whatever their issues are with quarter, I get it. They have got not changed anything. And to me, I know it's his first year, and we poo-pooed it, but this is for a team that's had a lot of bad Decembers and a lot of bad collapses. This, if it's not number 1, it's top 2 or 3, and at some point it has to fall on McDaniel. And I don't know what he's doing. It feels like he's doing nothing about it. Like, he's just sort of, he looks lost when you watch him in the game, and it's sort of frustrating me. And where I'm like, these are the Packers game and this game, they should not have lost. Even with the injuries, even with all that, the game was in their hands. And they just kept, we're going to keep punting. Screw it. It's like, what is going on with this game? Like, it's just frustrating to watch the team go down the drain.
Well, especially in the second half where we talked about coming out in the third quarter, you're gaining field position. You go down and make a great drive. Teddy kind of push passes the ball into the end zone to Mostert, and it's a It's a touchdown, and you're up 7 points. Going, okay, now we're going to play defense because Mac Jones isn't going to do squat. They really can't run the football. They don't threaten you down the field. But yet the Dolphin defense, we're always pinning it on the offense. The Dolphin defense has not come up with a big stop in the second half of games since the Baltimore game. I don't think it was. I mean, I'm looking at the goal line stands and the 4th and 1s and all the things that happened early in the season for that defense that made you feel good about it. But when you think about beginning of the fourth quarter against New England, it's 3rd and 5, and Mac Jones finds Myers wide open for 25 yards, and now it kickstarts the drive. Now you get another 3rd down, you get a PI with Cross and mauling, I can't remember who the receiver was, inside the 5-yard line, and now you've got a 1st and goal at the 5. So you've given one,
and they have nobody on Myers.
Yeah,
he's out there on the left side,
England,
and he's waving here.
Yeah.
And they snapped the ball, and the linebacker couldn't get there in time. But
yeah,
I mean, an easy score from there.
And that really, I think, turned the second half and maybe turned the game, because New England was like, man, this is supposed to be one of the better teams in the AFC. If we win this game, we control our own destiny. All of a sudden, you start believing you can win that game, and they did. They get a sack, they get a 4th and 16, and I think we check it down. Instead of maybe, who cares, the interception there? Just throw the football down the field, right? And but Sealer got a sack later in that sequence of downs. You find Gesicki late, you have a chance with an onside kick, but I think the league stats were over in terms of onside kicks successfully by the kicking team this year. So, boy, squandered opportunities.
You need the USC special teams out there for that to work.
Yeah,
where they spread like the Red Sea and then just allow the guy to come 20 yards down the field and scoop the ball up.
I think LSU just scored again as well.
Oh, man. I mean, that was the only game I lost yesterday, my personal bookmaking venture, after my friend hammered me to the tune of 8-1 on the NFL card, which I saw that coming because I was looking at the games going, I mean, this guy's got this locked up here. I'd love to reverse this. But to lose that USC game, I mean, that was to the point spread, much less the game straight up. I mean, just incredible. And we'll get into all of this college stuff. I just wanted to finish up thought here on the Dolphins. I mean, this represents to me just a monumental failure. I don't know that 9-8 and even making the postseason represents something that I'm thinking, wow, this was tremendous progress, because we had so much, reason to hope that, McDaniel was on the right track. I think Tyreek Hill, we were talking about, trades that were monumental that, turned out to be catastrophic, like Russell Wilson, where, you traded away 2 first-rounders, 2 second-rounders, a bunch of players, and then even more considerations for a guy that you're now saddled with who appears to be completely shot and incapable of doing what you wanted him to do. Tyreek Hill, I think, has justified, what they exchanged him for. And you would love to have this guy on the roster. But if they go 9-8, John, same record as last year.
Same record.
I mean, to put it in Miley, what the fuck is that? I don't know. I don't know what to make of that. And we need them to win a game against a team that I don't know. I mean, it looks horrible right now, the Jets, but, they have to win a game just to do that. And then, you now have the Bills and Patriots, and we don't know what's going to happen with that ball game.
Right. You're playing against a team that has nothing to play for in the Jets. So that could be good or bad, because,
They played like that the last several weeks. Like to play for.
That's what they have great practice at playing at games like this.
I mean, they're accustomed to this position.
So you could either play really well or just, all over yourself. You just don't get out of bed. But the Dolphins, back to your original point about Tyreek Hill, great trade, right? Great getting him on the field. Made
Whatever
a
it
world
costs.
of difference for the Miami Dolphins team in terms of lighting up the scoreboard. But you really dig deeper after the surface of the trade and how he made Waddle better, how he made Tua better, how he makes the offense better in terms of play calling for McDaniel. Okay,
he's been a real professional too. I mean, and a huge
been a model
positive catalyst,
right,
for a guy that had
a shady past.
little bit of a checkered,
Yeah.
situation there in the past. I
You know,
don't
a
remember
couple
exactly
incidents
what it
that
was,
were,
but
pretty
wasn't
bad.
considered a great teammate before.
Right. And he has been a great teammate. You know,
Yeah.
he's been good with the media. He's been good, off the field. You haven't heard boo from him. But
Right.
take a bigger look at this thing, guys. You might end up with the same record as last year. Maybe you get in, maybe you don't. But the Dolphins have uncertainty at quarterback, okay, going forward. They have no cap room at all.
None.
Okay,
Yeah.
zero. They're all in for the next year and a half, 2 years with what they have.
No picks.
No
You
picks. Yeah.
have
Let's throw in no draft picks.
no draft. They don't participate in the draft.
Anybody wants in a trade.
You're going to have to get rid of Kasicki at some point in the off season. You're going to have to find, can Armstead possibly tape up and play another season? Maybe, but he might not get through as many games as he did this year.
I think you dig up Sherman Plunkett and let him man on the left side.
Point being, there's a lot of question marks on this team for a team that was out of the gate blazing.
Yes.
And then all of a sudden hit the skids after the bad teams kind of fell off the schedule, or the mediocre teams. Detroit's a pretty good team now, but at the time they were just finding out who they were. But that's kind of what we talked about early in the season. The Dolphins were going to sprint out. If they could get 2-2 out of the gates, we'd be happy. They went 3-1. But then, they get through the lighter part of the schedule, and we said, hey, those 3 away games, if they can beat the Chargers, find a way to beat the Chargers, because you're giving San Fran and Buffalo, who are better teams, probably the edge. They don't return serve at home against Green Bay, and then you lose one at New England in good weather. You figure it was going to be a bad weather game.
Yeah,
but don't.
In their defense, Green Bay's come on and played much better football.
Well.
I mean, if you watched them in the beginning of the year, they were garbage, and you thought that was it, and that Aaron Rodgers wouldn't be there anymore. But of late, even though he hasn't been razor sharp in these victories, Aaron Rodgers, he's been instrumental in what's happened, but not the same Aaron Rodgers that we're accustomed to, making almost no mistakes. I mean, he's thrown some poor long passes, especially where he had guys wide open and missed them. But doing enough there as a team, they seem to have generated, a momentum that's going in a positive direction, as they have a chance now to make the postseason. What were they, 4-8?
Yeah,
at one point.
They were completely out of it. And that was the game, really, the Miami Dolphins at home. I mean,
that was a big one for him, sure.
200 yards in the first half. You felt like you were up 3 touchdowns, and it was only a touchdown. But the fumble before half, Green Bay scores, and then they come out and score in the third quarter, flip the game right around, and then the interceptions down the stretch killed the Dolphins.
Oh, that was as ugly as it could possibly get. John Congemi here. It's Pigskin Playbook with John Congemi, brought to you by Jimmy Johnson's Big Chill. That's mile marker 104, the Overseas Highway in Key Largo. A couple of other things on the pro side, as we do have a lot to be decided here in this last week of the season. I'm wondering, and curious also. I mean, this was a University of Pittsburgh kid, Damar Hamlin. I don't know if you were watching the game, or not sure that they've been playing what actually happened. I've seen it on some newscasts where they showed this young man collapse after he makes a tackle. And, everybody was saying how unprecedented this was. I mean, we've seen guys go down for a long, extended period of time. You're just hoping they move a fingertip or something.
Yeah.
And it is an inherent part of the game. I mean, obviously these dangers. Now, this is something a little bit different, because it's like a flash cardiac arrest. But what was your thought as you were watching this transpire, if you were, and then what do you do about it? I know we're not trying to marginalize, the young man's health, Hamlin, but I mean, what do you do about it if you're the NFL? I mean, how do you play this out?
I don't know. I've been kicking that around all night, thinking how they're going to, get back on the field and play this game. Do you do it like a baseball game where you pick it right back up where you left off? Do you start what do you do? That's a huge, because it has huge implications in terms of the playoffs moving forward. But, first for Damar Hamlin, I didn't watch it live, Defo. I was out at dinner, but when I saw all the replays and, got home and watched, I mean, that's such a freak thing to have happened to you on the field, where you make a normal play in a game, you stand up, and all of a sudden, you're out on your feet and you're on your back and you're fighting for your life, really. And
that was a complete collapse. I mean, the guy literally just passed out as he was standing there.
Yeah,
that was ugly.
You just all of a sudden your thoughts go to, oh man, get his family next to him, somebody save his life on the field, and the paramedics and both training staffs did a miraculous job of doing their job, and being able to be proficient, and smart and all the things you needed to do in that heated of a moment medically for Hamlin to be able to revive him and be able to get him to the UC Medical Center, which is like right around the corner, kind of from the stadium. And gosh, you're praying for the guy that he's going to be okay. Right now, he's still in critical condition. I don't think there's any live updates to change that this morning. But you're hoping that he's going to be able to be breathing on his own and be able to be cognizant and be able to, live a normal life, after this incident. But just a freakish play that I've never seen happen on a field that way, in terms of a guy making a play. Usually the guy, kind of rolls over and stays down, and now you're worrying about paralysis. That's the first thing you're thinking about, but never a flash cardiac arrest type of situation, because the hit wasn't wasn't crazy. One of those velocity types of hits that you would go, you would stand up in your chair, and go, wow, that was
fairly routine,
very vicious hit.
Yeah, it was ugly. I mean, we've seen Hank Gathers. I was out in Los Angeles when Hank Gathers collapsed, Loyola Marymount, and died. I was talking earlier. I had a friend that was in a fight that resulted in a ring death, and when talking about it, and he was a perfectly decent guy. He wasn't some guy that was, threatening to eat your children before a fight. Very respectful. Just like to compete in a sport, and that happened to be the sport that he chose. But he knew obviously of the inherent risk, and I was saying earlier, I remember him telling me, when I asked him about his reaction and how he was feeling about it, he said it could have been me. Now, I don't know that playing football, look, anything can happen, right? I mean, you could be playing basketball in a park and hit your head on the pole that, holds the basket up, and, you could lose your life. I mean, there's a risk going out there and doing virtually anything. An old geezer like me could easily have a stroke, while out there playing tennis, and I'm not talking about a backhand. But I mean, how did you feel about it? There's an inherent risk, and the weirdest thing about it too, about being a football player especially, is how ingrained it is to just move on after you see a guy down on the field, because it's relatively routine to see players down on the field every
guys
4 or 5 plays.
You don't know how many times at a practice, either in high school or in college or in the pros, that a guy goes down on the field and all of a sudden the coach goes, "Okay, let's move the drill."
No.
Okay,
right. Yeah, they were talking about that last night. Yeah,
laying in agony.
The Nick
and
Saban.
They go, "Okay, let's move up 20 yards. We don't want to ruin practice. Let's keep the momentum. Let's keep going.
Lose those reps." Exactly.
There's no rep. There's nobody else. The guy's still on the ground 10 minutes later. So it's. I don't think a player ever thinks about that type of situation before he goes to practice or play. Yeah. I really don't. And the only time that you do think about it is when it does happen.
Yep. Yeah.
That I believe that honestly.
Yeah, and and this is a unique situation in the sense that this doesn't appear to have been an induced physical injury, although the stress of the game obviously might have had something to do with it, but we haven't seen that before, and I do, like you, feel like they didn't give enough credit necessarily to the medical staff, because if they kept that guy revived. Now, they didn't have all of this information, but I thought that ABC literally, or ESPN, wasted an hour. And you've been in situations where all of a sudden, something took a turn in your sports story, where you're having a great time talking about, what they should do on 3rd and 10, and then all of a sudden it became a news story.
Right.
And especially being involved in talk radio, as Lubie alluded to. I mean, I've spent weeks talking about Marjorie Stoneman Douglas, not exactly my cup of tea to be talking and providing insight into just a major mind-boggling tragedy. But
Mhm.
I thought these guys did a really weak job last night. I was sort of embarrassed for my chosen profession here because they didn't really provide any insight into the player or who he was or nothing. I mean, I know they were trying to do things on the fly, but I thought they really mumbled and stumbled their way through that.
I just caught the tail end of it when they were going. Scott Van Pelt was in studio, and
Yeah.
Who was it? The former player that he was with,
Ryan Clark.
Ryan Clark. I caught a little bit of that, and then I caught Troy
And I guess this
and
happened to
Joe
Ryan
Buck.
Clark, where he was
Yeah,
hospitalized.
yeah. So
Yeah.
he had a really good perspective on things, but I didn't catch any of the other stuff other than when they went back to Troy and Joe in the booth for that very last hit. But I can't comment on that. I all I remember is when the banter was going back and forth in the studio. I thought it was a really good, realistic, thoughtful conversation between a guy that's trying to keep the conversation going and trying to throw different
Oh, you're talking
angles
about
at a
Van
guy
Pelt.
that went through it.
Yeah, yeah.
So I thought that was pretty good.
Before that, I thought they just laid an egg, man, like fell on their face. By the way, just out of curiosity, because Troy Aikman is very handsome. He's distinguished. He's had a great career. I don't think he provides much insight into a ball game. And if there was somebody else doing, but for half the money, would you have done it, John?
Yeah, you know what? I would have thought about it for maybe a half a second. Yeah,
Yeah.
for a quarter of the money.
I don't find that Troy ever says anything of any great interest or something that I find, whoa, that was interesting. I didn't know that, about the game of football. Which, I mean, all of these guys are trying to educate people that have been watching the game since they were 5 years old. So it's not, that important to me to constantly emphasize, the strategic stuff so much because we've seen it, right? But I want to know something about, who's out there in the field. And that's why I thought, it was especially weak that they never talked about, who this guy is. And
Yeah,
what is this?
Yeah,
I would have thought they would have tried to give more background on
Humanize him.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just what type of kid he was. I wouldn't have been surprised if they would have
Somebody
tried
could
to get
speak about him. Yeah, get Narduzzi on the phone. Sure.
on the
Narduzzi,
broadcast,
like,
who coached him 2 years ago in college and recruited him, and give you a little insight about who he was, where he's from, and what he meant to the program there, and how they're feeling, for him tonight. That type of thing.
Yeah, I'm usually very impressed. And we've been in this situation. I'm sure you have too, where all of a sudden you're doing a sports show or whatever, a broadcast, and you have to transition into some kind of a really heavy news.
Yeah.
And a lot of guys do it very well, but I thought these guys really just absolutely bombed last night. And then Van Pelt at least was able to resurrect some of the storylines there. And
Right.
Clark, I guess, had been through this, so although I'm not a huge fan, he speaks very well, seems sharp, but he's morphed into a little bit of a Stephen A. Smith type for me. Ryan Clark, when his general commentary, he's always screaming.
Yeah, he
very
was good.
intense.
He was good last night.
Good last
That
night,
was
yeah.
a topic that he could really speak to. But
Yeah.
you're right. I guess sometimes
He's
whoever
become
yells
hysterical.
the loudest
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
the winner. I don't know.
Hey, I saw a friend of ours was down at Jimmy Johnson's Big Chill. He had some pictures, and it looked exactly as we talk about it. Like this guy was literally enjoying a big chill. He was on his way down to Key West, and he was going to hit it on the way back as they had such a good time there. And that seems to be something that happens to a lot of people that experience Jimmy Johnson's Big Chill for the first time.
I think you're right, Defo. A lot of people that I speak with, when they're driving down, when their destination is past Key Largo, they always end up, veering off to the right to the Bayside and run into Jimmy Johnson's Big Chill, and
Little square out right there.
yeah, a
mile
little
marker
just down
104.
and out right there at the mile marker, and you either run into the sports bar, you hit the tiki bar, you go in the pool. If you're looking for a quick lunch, you can grab the Fisherman's Pizza. That might be a little bit delayed lunch,
unless you have mayo with you, that's a little bit overwhelming.
Yeah, you got to finish everything on your plate, right?
Yeah.
So, and then the best part about Jimmy Johnson's Big Chill is when you're there on the weekends, especially on a Sunday when they have the live band going, and
man.
Dominic and Larry are up there singing and playing, you just get a cocktail and put your feet up and listen to good music and take in all those beautiful Bayside views and, just chill. And that's the best place to do it, at Jimmy Johnson's.
I mean, when you're curled up in a fetal position, at home, and you're watching TV, and you're thinking, you can't take another hour of this, and you think about, instead, you could be out watching the sun drop into the Bayside in Key Largo as your brother Dominic, who doesn't take a back seat to Bono when it comes to being able to belt out a tune. I mean, that was capping off a day. You know me, I love my live music. I mean, I go see local bands as often as I can, and I have many friends now in the business that I enjoy seeing all the time whenever they're playing. But they had a full day of different bands going there. I mean,
Yeah.
Galvano's not like holding back. I'm sure he has to pay, each one. They're not doing it for free. But you usually get like one schlepper bar mitzvah band at one of these places, or some clown with an electrified steel drum that also makes its own, music, has his own horn section coming out of a computer.
Right.
This was good live. I mean, like energetic music by some great performers. It was fantastic.
It's so much fun going down there because you can do nothing and have a good time, or you can do a lot and feast like a Viking and have a great time. And especially this time of year with the playoffs coming up, basketball's kicking in a high gear, hockey's in high gear. You've got all the sports on, golf's going to start to ramp up. So the sports bar is a great option because they serve all the food you would want at a sports bar, only they kick it up a notch. It's just that much better at Jimmy Johnson's Big Chill. So you never know who you're going to run into, but you're going to have a good time with your crew. Just hanging out, and you're going to get first class food and service. That's always a staple at Jimmy Johnson's Big Chill.
No, good times I had by all in a great place, beautiful setting. We recommend it wholeheartedly. Jimmy Johnson's Big Chill. The accommodations, if you know another couple that you can stand sharing a place with, I mean, it's not like you're going to have to be right on top of each other, because these places are gigantic and absolutely as unique as I've ever seen in terms of accommodations in the Keys, and you can easily share that. So log on to jimmyjohnsonsbigchill.com and check out the accommodations as well when available. A spectacular Lubie. Poor Lubie was sleeping like in the back of a Ford Fairlane that was junked on the side of the road there off of the overseas highway. One of those little backwoods houses that looks like it should have been condemned. And he's outside there sleeping in the car. And we're in the luxury of Jimmy Johnson's Big Chill. I still feel some Jew guilt about that, John, but thank you for setting that up.
You'll carry that for a while, yeah.
I got over it already. All right, we're coming back with more. We'll dissect the whole college scene. It was spectacular. A couple of Thriller in Manila type of ball games. And we'll get John's opinion on that. And then, of course, we have the national championship matchup, which I'm regretting, although I don't know that they're going to do this, but I don't think it's impossible. I think that was TCU not like 20-1 in the 4-team field, that they had some enormous odds. And you're thinking, geez, at that price, I mean, obviously they're in there with at least a half a shot against Michigan. So all you have to do is get by that game, and now you're in an enormous winning position, depending on how much money you put up. Because you can hedge off and bet Georgia if you want and make a small score, or cash an enormous amount of money at 20-1, and all you had to do was win the one game. I guess you should have just bet it all in that game. Right?
Yeah.
No, you're not going to get 20-1 odds though. But I think they would. I'm not sure what their odds were going into the tournament, but I think they were like substantial, and here they are in a position to win. So we'll see if John thinks they have a chance there. That's coming up a week from last night, a week from Monday night, and should be a very, very interesting game with two exciting games. I don't know how they top those two semifinals. Back with more with John in a moment. Now that
the time
8:39.
Hey, folks, Tony Segreto here. Let me ask you a question. What do you look for when you go out to eat? Good food, obviously, friendly atmosphere, not too loud, but good energy, reasonable prices, and a place where you feel comfortable. All those ingredients, no pun meant there, are hard to find unless you're talking about the Texas Roadhouse. You see, they encompass all of those attributes. Really, really good food, amazing atmosphere, good for a family, good for a date, or just a night out for yourself, and prices that will make you extremely happy. Their ribs unmatched. Steaks hand-cut every day. Everything, and I mean everything, is made on site, including their incredible bread. It's the one day, folks, that you can forget about low-carb diets. Trust me when I tell you, Texas Roadhouse, your restaurant, your destination when you say, where should we go and eat tonight?
From the newly renovated sports bar to the beautiful bayside views captured at the Tiki Bar, Jimmy Johnson's Big Chill has it all. Located at mile marker 104, the Big Chill also offers waterfront dining while experiencing breathtaking sunset views of the Florida Keys. It's simply the hottest spot in the Keys to cool off. That's Jimmy Johnson's Big Chill at mile marker 104 in Key Largo. For more information, call today at 305-453-9066.
Recently, we realized it's not just hurricane season that can hurt us. Any time of year, things can happen to your home or business. And the insurance company can be your friend, but they also can be your enemy. Horizon Public Adjusters, Justina Testa, are here for you to help this process go so much easier. Before you call the insurance company, call Horizon Public Adjusters and Justina Testa at 954-809-8752. Would you go into court without an attorney? So why would you go up against an insurance company without Horizon Public Adjusters and Justina Testa? 7 to 10 times more money recovered with a public adjuster than if you went on your own. If there's no recovery, there's no fee. Give them a call at 954-809-8752.
We welcome to the show John Congemi, who joined us for Dateline Dolphins. John, how are you, my friend?
Defo, I'm doing well, and that's not the only thing that's going to reach a new height. I'll be at about 220, 225 after this football season if we visit too much. Outstanding down at Jimmy Johnson's Big Chill.
Grab a bagel and a schmear, plus some Defo and Lubie. Welcome back to the Defo Show.
Welcome back to the show. We're happy to have John Congemi, the Pigskin Playbook, and there were two. I mean, this Hamlin injury last night naturally was capturing most of the attention of people in the news, sports media, and was certainly worthy of talking about. But the college games were a thrill in Manila-esque for me, John Congemi. I didn't catch every second of every one of them. I saw enough of TCU, Michigan. Having unfortunately been put in a position where I was laying points with Michigan. I was never in a favorable position in that game. People are criticizing clock management of Jim Harbaugh, and then all of a sudden, speculation after he was dedicated to being on the college scene, had this wonderful year, surprised a lot of people, especially with big victories late in the season. Speculation now he's open to taking a pro job, which you're figuring there are going to be a few. What do you think? I mean, both teams were doubted throughout the season. Most people thought Michigan had that early cupcake schedule and was eventually going to come back to the pack and fall apart. And TCU, right down to the wire, people were saying, look, it's a miracle these guys continue to win. So what was your thought on that game and the chances of TCU winning it all?
I felt like for TCU to win, the game had to start the way it did. They had to get out to an early lead. They had to get momentum early and get Michigan in a position where they had to play from behind and, chase the game. And it felt like Michigan was chasing the game, and they almost caught up with it, midway through with McCarthy making some plays and the Michigan defense kind of settling down. But TCU has been living on the edge all season. They've played a number of close games to where you always counted them out. You didn't think they were that good, but they ended up always winning those games. And this was just another game, maybe a little different way of getting to the win because their defense made so many spectacular plays that they turned into points. But they made enough down the stretch and were good enough to hold off Michigan's comebacks attempts, because there were multiple attempts. It seemed like it was one of, as you said, the thriller in Manila. It was one of those, punch, counter punch that TCU just had the upper hand. They had, they got one in every round after the bell, that kind of stunned the Wolverines. And, like you said, I watched a lot of the games, but it's at a bad time, Defo. You've got a glass of wine in your hand or a cocktail in your hand all day because you're thinking about the evening and how much more you can drink or how much more you can eat, right?
Yeah.
So you're kind of watching the game in the distance, and I watched the beginning of it, and I knew that TCU had a more than a fighter's chance when they scored defensively, and all of a sudden you were like, I don't think Michigan's the type of team that can come all the way back. They can come back, get into the game, but they're going to need a turnover or two from TCU to actually win it, and that really never came.
Wildly entertaining, as was the Ohio State-Georgia game, where Ohio State had Georgia by the jugular throughout most of the ball game, and a very surprising USC-esque type of collapse there at the end, and it did look like Georgia, with this vaunted defense, was incapable of stopping Stroud and the Ohio State offense. They were literally carving them into diced potatoes there, and looked like they had to win. I mean, they had this thing sealed up. We had them.
Yeah.
Right, Georgia's who we thought they were, and end up losing the game. And even with the final possibility of getting this field goal to win it, this guy Ruggles, who had been pretty good by college football standards, I mean, that was one of the worst shanks I've ever seen in a pressure situation. A line drive brick to the left there. That was lucky it got off the ground.
That looked like my drive on 18 at Grand Oaks yesterday.
Exactly.
So it never had a chance.
Right.
Dead in the water.
When you hear that second thwack too, and it's caroming off trees like a pinball.
Yeah.
That's always embarrassing while you're standing at the tee, giving it the old Ernie Palmer peering out there. Hey, where is it? The fairway? But you go thwack. Yeah. That was my shot.
Exactly.
Yeah. I mean, I could do mine in sound effects.
That
was ugly, though. I
game,
mean, and does that haunt a guy for the rest of his life? I mean, kids are able to shake stuff off now, unlike guys in the past where you would have carried that to your grave.
Yeah, this may go that far. That was the shot that Ohio State had going into this game. I felt like Ohio State's offense could score on Georgia as good as Georgia's defense is. I felt that was the one thing Ohio State had going for them. They were going to be able to match a score with a score. They were big enough up front to be able to play power football with Georgia. They were athletic enough up front to be able to sustain that line of scrimmage battle. And they had the athletes that were going to overwhelm Georgia if they really got on a roll. And Ohio State's passing game really did get on a roll. I felt this, and I don't know if you guys went in this direction, but it almost felt like to me that the lifeline that Ohio State got was kind of not deserved because they got beat so badly at home in a rivalry type game against Michigan that they ended up getting a second chance.
Yeah.
But they made the most of their second chance. More
like
than
it was
that.
going to be a winner.
They went down to the last play.
Yeah.
Now, I don't root for Georgia a lot. I like Georgia. I like Kirby Smart. I played golf with him. He's a great guy. I respect what he does as a coach. Saying that, I felt like Georgia is the better team. You play 5 games, Georgia's going to win 4.5 of those games. Okay.
Yeah.
So I felt like they actually deserved to play for the national title. They didn't deserve to wait a month. And the lifeline that Ohio State got, which they're a good team, but they had their chance and they got their ass beat at home.
But who would you have put in there? I mean, you couldn't.
I'm just saying that's why I was rooting for Georgia because Georgia's been that everybody's had the bullseye on Georgia's back for 2 years. It's hard to play every game against quality opponents and not have a dud come out somewhere.
Yep.
You're going to have a fallback quarter or two, and they almost did, and credit Ohio State for taking advantage. But I was hoping that Georgia found a way to win because for 2 years now, they've been the best college football team, and they deserve to play for that opportunity again.
All right. So a substantial favorite. I think the opening line was 13 and a hook in favor of Georgia in this ball game. So once again, TCU not getting a lot of recognition for whatever it is that they accomplished in pulling off this upset over what was supposed to be a much more rugged Michigan team. I mean, people thought that Michigan had the physicality to just, pound these guys.
I think that's why TCU ended up winning the game. Yes, granted, they get the defensive scores, which is always going to help, and they needed them.
Yeah.
But they were better in the trenches against Michigan than I thought they would be. Their linebackers were fast and big and physical. The defensive front, they had a freshman nose tackle play against Michigan who had, a veteran offensive line. He held his own. He did a great job. And then the quarterback makes enough plays. tough SOB, man. This guy keeps coming at you,
Yeah.
and they're a fun team. They're a fun team to watch because I think they genuinely like each other. You know, offense, defense. They're kind of, you know, one. Sometimes you can get, you know, a heavy dominance on one side of the football. It's a drag on the other side, especially in college football, where, you know, maybe not so much these days because everybody's kind of a pro. Everybody's getting paid, right? So it doesn't really matter as much.
Yeah, what do you think George's payroll is?
Sometimes.
I think George's payroll is larger than the Jets.
Yeah, I think TCU. Well, TCU should have some oil money.
I mean, if you're Drake May, right? I mean, are you back at North Carolina this coming season? No.
Well,
I mean, when they're offering you like supposedly $5 million, $10 million to go somewhere else.
The quarterback at Wake Forest.
Hartman.
He
ended up going to
Notre Dame.
Yeah. What do you think that was worth?
That's what it's rumored. Yeah.
He'll be living in Jerry Faust's old house. That, they just
Jerry
happen to have a quick claim deed on. Yeah. No, I mean, how much are they paying this kid to leave Wake Forest? That was a big story there at Wake Forest. It's a touching, heartwarming story. I mean, he's there with crippled children, and you know, he went through all of his stuff.
He'll be leaving.
Loves it. He's
South
been there like
Bend,
7
Indiana.
years. Yeah, I mean, he's had a Blutarski like session there. 7 years of college, and now he's available to go to Notre Dame for like $20 million. That's
I mean, I'd be sprinting to South Bend. Both of my hamstrings would be pulled.
Yeah, I wouldn't care if there was nothing to do there. I mean, yeah, I mean, don't you wish you were around today? I mean, you can always say that, right? If you had it to do over again, but you know, coming along at the time that you did, it would have been nice to be able to go. Like, you know, well, you started at Pittsburgh, so you weren't leaving, but. I mean, it would have been nice if some alumni there, like the Primanti brothers, could have greased you with a few $1 million.
Yeah, instead of
no doubt about
cash,
that.
I got pastrami, egg, and cheese sandwiches. That's right.
So I'm, you know, slightly invested. I mean, I can't say it was a substantial enough amount of money for me to, you know, start crying about it. But it's always interesting as you start examining various mathematical permutations when you're watching a ball game now from a gambling standpoint, and whether or not your points, whether they're being allotted to you or subtracted from the total, are going to stand up. So I have USC giving three. USC giving three in that game against Tulane. They go up, what was it, like 45-30. They're up 15 points. Their only way of losing to the point spread would be not to give up one touchdown, but two with about 3.5 minutes to go in a ball game. And I think also you had Tulane with a marginal number of timeouts left. They had already used one somewhere in the second half, I believe. So they weren't going to be able to really do much with the clock. And they scored 2 plays later. Wow. I mean, what's up with Lincoln Riley? I mean, is that just something that an oversight on his part? Because same thing happened to him in the conference championship game against Utah.
Same thing happened
where, you know, they
Oklahoma.
Yeah, I mean,
yeah, you're right.
Defense.
You're right.
Like,
when
does he focus on defense? Like, when does he give a crap about defense?
That's a glaring, you know, that's one of those things that you carry over into the offseason, and you guarantee that there's going to be some type of changes either with staff philosophy on defense, because that's happened to them multiple times. And it really, you're right, Lubie, the head coach bears some responsibility because that's happened just about every stop he's been at.
Yeah. Have you ever seen a worse execution by a special? Well, I mean, you could, you know, go back a zillion different directions on this, but the attempt on the onside kick that followed. I mean, you talk about like stupidity. How did they allow this ball to roll right through the middle of the field for 15 yards and then have a TCU player pounce on it? That was insane. I mean, you just gave up a 2-play, like 80-yard drive, and then you allow this onside kick to dribble right through the middle of the defense. Nobody even makes a move for it. It was incredible.
You know, Defo, I got a theory on that. That's why when you look and they finally ID the special teams coach on the sidelines, you expect him to have. Was
it Joe Avizano? I mean,
you expect him to have a cigarette in one hand, right? Yeah. And just a flask in the other. And he's just kind of nipping at the flask and throwing the butt and cuffing it, you know, and yelling at the guys. They all got to be crazy because you get 1 or 2 shots in a game to make an impact, right? And it seems like when you screw up, it gets magnified that much more on special teams than any other position or any other.
That was you got it all the way. I mean,
Yeah,
they're
right.
looking around. Yeah, you got it. You got it.
I got it. Nobody's got it. Yeah.
Somebody's got to pick it up after it gets past 10. I mean, come on, make a move for the
it.
ball. That was crazy. And then, like they just got stuffed on a running play at their own 1 when they incurred the safety. And, they run another play like they're just equally dumb right into the middle of the line. And you're thinking, my God, I mean, this guy's doing everything. Do I sound bitter? I only lost a couple of bucks on this.
I can tell.
How do you lose to the point spread there, much less lose the game? I mean, that was absolutely
Did you guys
insane.
see the how about the Florida State game and the Pitt game, Lubie, too? That was wild at the end.
Yeah.
I only caught the last 4 minutes of the Sun Bowl, and UCLA goes up, and you figure, oh, it's done. And then the kid that only bowl games comes back down, and they find a way to get a kick, but FSU had a crazy finish as well.
Yes.
Yeah, ended up hanging on. That was one where, fortunately, I was on the right side of the point spread.
There you go.
But, all right, so looking forward to next Monday night and the championship game, TCU. I was 13.5. Is it still there? 13 and a hook. I don't know if they've impressed enough people to have that line move in another direction here. Did I have it up? Yeah. Oh, 13.
Is it
So
13?
Half a point shaved there. People sending in a small amount of capital on TCU in the early going. I have to research this, but I thought they were like 20-1 in a 4-team field, which seemed almost impossible to win. And I mean, you would be in such a favorable position if you had gone ahead and taken them up on that proposition. That would have been great. But unfortunately, I didn't make any kind of move in that direction, thinking they were going to get crushed like a grape by Michigan.
I did too. I didn't think they had a chance.
No, yeah. Michigan was just going to overwhelm them. All right, Jimmy Johnson's Big Chill, great place to go. We talked about that, and we actually are working on the arrangements, John. You'll appreciate this, to get down there supposedly middle of the month, according to Luke.
Okay.
That was the last word that he had. Although your brother Dominic's no longer taking his calls, and neither is Amanda. When are we coming down? And we're trying to make it so that Jimmy's there. Obviously, that would be the
Right.
real purpose of going down there. So we'll keep you posted on that. We thank you so
Perfect.
much for joining us here today. Dolphins, Jets. Do they do it? I mean, do we get the
Well,
9,
they have
or do
to.
we
They
die with
have
the
to do
dagger
it.
there, a bait and a hook?
I think no matter who plays quarterback, I think they've got a chance to win at home. But
Jets look
New
horrible.
England
I mean,
holds all
horrible.
the cards, and depending on how the NFL rectifies the game between Buffalo and Cincinnati, when they play it, how they play it, where and when is going to determine a lot in the next probably 48 hours.
Well, and I think Mike White is a savior, but there's a reason that he's not starting in the NFL somewhere. I would think not that maybe you could distinguish himself if he really gets a chance, but geez, I mean he looked like Slappy White out there in this game. He was horrendous against Seattle. And
I hope that Skylar Thompson actually starts in the game. Not that I have anything against Teddy, but if Teddy's hurt and can't really grip the football,
they pulled his
and do all
finger
that
back
stuff,
into the socket. He had a dislocated finger.
So they got to wait for the. So I've done that one, and you got to wait for the swelling to go down. And
why didn't he go Ronnie Lott? Just whoosh,
cut it right off.
thing, put it in a paper cutter.
But actually, when Skylar had a week to prepare, and I think it was the Minnesota game.
Yeah, he's not bad.
He was starting to get things rolling, and I'd like to see him play a whole game and see where the chips fall there.
Well, and we've forgotten, like Mr. Irrelevant is starting for San Francisco. Everybody's darling to win it all. I mean, and as we said, I mean, these guys have a tendency sometimes. You get the backup comes in, he really inspires the team one week. Everybody's screaming, hey, he should start the next week, and then he just lays an egg the following week. But this Skylar Thompson has acquitted himself in a fairly reasonable fashion. So that'll be interesting. You'll be at this game, right? Dolphins, Jets?
I'll be there, yes. We'll do the pregame Dolphins Weekly Live at 11:30 on Channel 4. And
Nice.
then the fifth quarter postgame right after.
All right. And what is your thought? Does it happen? I mean, I couldn't comprehend how the Jets were favored over anybody. They were favored over Seattle last week for some bizarre reason. And I thought Seattle needed to win that game because their playoff hopes are contingent on a bunch of other, games that play that day. But they still were alive, right? So why would
Right.
they have any incentive that they needed to win that game to keep this in place? The Jets now, totally diffused from what was a promising season early on, but I don't know that I've seen a team that looks worse than the Jets at this stage of the season. Even the Houston Texans, are showing more signs of life than the Jets are.
Well, and that's saying a lot too, because the team they're playing, is on a 5-game losing streak.
5-game
So-
losing streak, and they're favored.
And I think the Dolphins are going to win. I don't know if it's going to matter though.
Yeah.
It all depends on
Well, and who knows about the Bills,
New
Patriots?
England.
Yeah.
I don't see New England scoring more than 13 points against a Buffalo team.
Yeah.
I just don't. And I haven't really looked to see where the game's being played. I think it's
I believe
in
it
Buffalo.
is in Buffalo, yeah.
With that much on the line, I don't foresee New England winning that game. So if Miami can, rally the
It is
troops,
in Buffalo. It's
Yeah.
in Buffalo. Yeah.
win one at home, at least they'll have a shot moving forward. So I do think they win at home.
Pretty wild and a strange occurrence there last night. And of course, all of our thoughts are with
Yes.
Damar Hamlin and hoping. I mean, you can't wait to see some good news on that. If you have, even the slightest bit of an emotional fiber to your being, and that would be great. And you would have to think if that happens, then the Buffalo Bills suddenly become inspired and win one for the Gipper type fashion, and go back to being the dangerous commodity they were, in terms of being favored to win the AFC and maybe even
Right.
the NFL championship this year. John, always a pleasure, my friend. Fantastic.
Thanks, guys.
Great job.
Appreciate
And
it. Thanks, Lubie.
always good stuff. And we appreciate you coming on the show. And thanks to Jimmy Johnson's Big Chill for bringing you John Congemi and the Pigskin Playbook. All right, we're going to see you guys 12 o'clock today. Mike Mayo's Lunchbox, a change of schedules. Might have been promoted, but I think it's been clarified that we will not be at the pizza spot today. Good reason for that, Lubie. They're closed on Tuesdays. Okay, so we've amended the schedule, and so we'll be coming here with our first show of 2023. Mayo was supposed to do this bottled spaghetti sauce tasting, which I have to give this mids a pretty good recommendation, Louis. Mid-price range, very tasty.
Nice.
I'm not sure. I haven't tried Rayo's or any of the really, really. What are the other really high-end ones that are going for like $15 a jar or whatever that is?
You're talking about Carbone.
Carbone, yeah. Oh, yeah, Carbone. Everybody likes that. All right, and it probably is a difference. I don't know. I guess you can make it as rich as you want to, but this was more than satisfying for me. When you're starving and all of a sudden the only thing in the closet is some spaghetti, and you have to open the box and then see if there's anything moving in the box because it's been in there. Like with 3 different residences. This one box of spaghetti that I opened up the other day. And you look in there, and I guess what? You're checking first for like lice, and then mold, and the overall freshness probably is compromised quite a bit, even if you're talking about Ronzoni, my friends. So we'll have that with Mike Mayo. Mayo, I have never seen a guy eat so much as Mayo did during the holidays. That was insane. Did you see what he was doing on like New Year's Eve with the lobsters and everything? Wow, this kid is my hero. We love Mayo, even though he's verklempt about a lot of things. He did end up at a hockey game, too. And he was rooting for the Panthers. He's a Ranger fan his whole life, this kid. He is the epitome. I mean, you talk about the essence of confusion. Now, this was in deference to his daughter, who was a Panther fan. He didn't want to sit there and start screaming, yeah, right in her face. When Vinny Trocheck threw in a gimme of a breakaway there as the Rangers always seem to have the edge in that game. This, what is it, Patrick Maurice? Is that the guy's name? Something Maurice? Chevalier? Whatever his name is? Paul Maurice, yeah. Has he ruined a good thing? I mean, they swing the big deal. They get rid of Hoobie Doobie, who was a real catalyst last year, but people deemed him to be too soft to win a championship. They bring in a guy, Kachuk, who's a dynamite player and has done nothing wrong. I mean, he's got like 17, 18 goals. He's a real menace in front of the net there, tough as nails. And a good guy to have on your team, and he brings that physicality. So that looks like a move that should have made the team better. No, they were dynamite last year. They sucked this year. Sitting there sub 500 with this guy, Paul Maurice. And he doesn't have much to say after these games, right? He's almost like the French Joe Philbin. I hope people appreciate this stuff. Yeah, he is. He's Joe Philbin speaking French. Parlez-vous français, Philbin? Right? The French, they end everything with a and that's kind of how the team is playing. So anyway, here's Mayo. He should have been reveling in the Rangers, just having a dominating performance there. They were almost always up 2 goals in the game. And Bobrovsky, once again, playing like a blind man in the Panthers net. Panthers offering zero resistance defensively to anything the Rangers were countering with. And that's it. He's rooting for the other team, who he hates, right? Despises the Panthers. That has to cause inner conflict, no? No wonder he's bitter about some of this stuff. It's amazing. All right, we'll find out where Mayo is at. But how he's even alive is incredible, isn't it? Do you see these pictures? I told him, well, this was Andy's idea. I actually just popped it up on one of the comments that he should write a book about being divorced. No one does it better than this guy. So he's treated to a royal feast every time he goes over to this woman's house.
Yep.
The same woman that was throwing, like a frying pan at his head just a few short years ago. Been there, done that. The butcher knife that time, and I pulled a prank about the, getting married in Las Vegas. Oh my God. It was like relatively a first-time starter there. She was a little volatile. Inclined to, flip out. I can find them. I tell you what. You're psychotic, neurotic maniac. Look me up, man, on Plenty of Fish. All right. We'll have, speaking of Plenty of Fish, we'll talk about some fish dinners, no doubt, I'm sure. And then we have the tasting thing. Tomorrow, you guys are going to be on the road there with Nikki Mohan. I'm going to be getting a new toe report there and see where I stand medically. Hopefully, I can get back to being myself. I really miss it. And then Thursday, we're at the pizza spot, which is great. You guys should come out and get yourself one of these pizzas, man. A pizza, the whole New Haven thing, which I didn't know anything about. Like, even growing up in the Northeast, I never thought about New Haven pizza. Did you? New Haven? When I was in New Haven, Connecticut, I thought, what the fuck am I going to do here? Was there many, many times covering basketball games and various sporting events, and there's nothing going on there in New Haven, no? I guess they make a different type of pizza that people love. Well, you had the Pepe's thing. I still prefer the pizza spot. I like the way they do that stuff. I really do. I'm not sure about Mayo's passion for that hot pepper cherry bomb thing. It's a little bit much for me, and I'm a big spice guy, man. I like it hot as hell. I really do. But when you see Mayo schwitzing and even Nikki Mohan had to start picking, she's got Caribbean blood. She had to start picking the stuff off there. All right, we'll be there on Thursday, and then Friday, Gulfstream Park, and that's been working out great. Had another winning day there on the Friday after burying everybody with that Katie Kakis. So I managed to get out of that hole and then have a great time. And what great food, huh? They had at Gulfstream. That was fantastic. That brisket, all of that stuff. Those wings were great. So they've turned us on to a lot of good stuff. All right, we will see you guys at 12 o'clock as we leave you know that. Yeah, we're slubbering here. It's 9:09.
Let's go to eat a damn snack.
Look what they done to my soul.